And good evening once again. Day 1365 of this Trump administration. 19 days to go now until Election Day. Tonight wasn't exactly a split screen night. More than that, you really needed two televisions, as the two candidates did the opposite of the debate that was supposed to be on tonight. They talked at the same time on opposing networks. Again tonight, the contrast was stark. Trump and Biden took questions from voters just hours after the U.S. passed 8 million coronavirus cases, a number just shy of the population of New York City. Over 218,000 souls now gone. What's gotten a bit lost is we're now in the third spike of infections. 37 states plus Guam, Washington, D.C. seeing double-digit increases in cases. It's become the defining issue of this election. Mass death has a way of focusing the mind and the voters. And it was a big focus at tonight's dueling town halls.
Mr. President, if you knew COVID-19, as you told Bob Woodward in February.
As what?
As you told Bob Woodward in February, was airborne and deadlier than the flu, why did you only put in place a travel ban from China and not put in place other measures?
I put on a travel ban far earlier than Dr. Fauci thought it was necessary, who I like, far earlier than the scientists. I was actually the only one that wanted to put it on. Dr. Fauci said I saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Did you?
I was early. I was extremely early when I put on the travel ban.
Has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks, but as far as the mask is concerned, I'm good with masks. I'm okay with masks. I tell people wear masks.
Our deaths per capita is among the highest among
mortality, on the excess mortality. And what we've done has been amazing, and we have done an amazing job, and it's rounding the corner.
Biden's response was predictably very different.
We should be talking about, depending on the continuation of the spread of the virus, we should be thinking about making a mandate. It's estimated by every major study done, from the University of Washington to Columbia, that if in fact we wore masks, we could save between now and the end of the year 100,000 lives. The words of a president matter.
Absolutely.
No matter whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, they matter. And when a president doesn't wear a mask or makes fun of folks like me when I was wearing a mask for a long time, then, people say, well, it mustn't be that important.
Trump was also asked about his last negative coronavirus test, and his answers raised further questions tonight.
Your first positive test was Thursday, October 1st, okay? When was your last negative test? When did you last remember having a negative test?
Well, I test quite a bit, and I can tell you that before the debate, which I thought it was a very good debate, and I felt fantastically.
Did you test the day of the debate?
I don't know. I don't even remember.
You say you don't know if you got a test on the day of the debate?
I had no problem. Again, the doctors do it. I don't ask them.
The debate that was supposed to take place tonight was canceled when Trump, fresh off the coronavirus after all, refused to appear in a virtual format. The final debate, if it happens, still scheduled for a week from tonight. Errin, you get to go first with this question, perhaps unanswerable. Do you think any minds, any votes were changed at the end of tonight for those lucky few Americans who have two flat screens hanging on the wall in their den?
Well, Brian, that is an open question, and I certainly have whiplash from trying to keep up with tonight's dueling town halls. Look, this was supposed to be a town hall with both men on the stage, and that is disappointing that didn't happen because the voters being able to engage with these candidates is really a different dynamic, and we saw their two very contrasting styles and messages on full display tonight. And so it's really just too bad that voters didn't get to see that with them sharing a stage. There are maybe a sliver of undecided voters at this point. I think really the only undecided issue is whether people are going to vote or not, but I don't think it's who they're going to vote for. So I think people kind of hunkered down in their camps tonight and either tuned in to Joe Biden if they were already voting for him, or to Donald Trump if they were already voting for him.
Eugene, I want to play a brief sampling of some more of Joe Biden over at the ABC News town hall. We'll discuss on the other side.
We shouldn't be defunding cops. We should be mandating the things that we should be doing within police departments and make sure there's total transparency.
And you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
So you'll come out with a clear position before Election Day?
Yes, depending on how they handle this.
If you lose, what will that say to you about where America is today?
Well, it could say that I'm a lousy candidate and I didn't do a good job. I hope that it doesn't say that we are as racially, ethnically, and religiously at odds with one another as it appears the president wants us to be.
Well, Eugene, folks can't say they don't have a clear choice or a stark difference in styles between these two guys. Let's look at where the race is. Our friends over at NPR have put together what's called in the business the kind of poll of polls. And when you cram all the math together, the race looks right now, subject to change, 54-42. Eugene, I think consensus was the president did better tonight, though he was angrier tonight. He was also up against a professional litigator turned television host in our mutual friend Savannah Guthrie, who was all lawyer tonight as she tried to drill down, correct, and get in. So the same question to you as I asked Errin. Do you think as much as a single vote was changed among people watching?
I don't think there are a whole lot of votes out there that can be changed at this point, Brian, but to the extent that there were, the difficulty tonight, obviously, was it was very difficult to watch both at the same time. I actually did it on a flat screen and on a laptop, and I have a headache. It was difficult to do. But even, in that sort of schizophrenic way of experiencing these two town halls, you saw the huge gulf in tone, and you saw just the difference in these two men. I thought, two incredibly meaningful moments were, one was when a voter asked Biden, what would he do to make the country better if he lost? And if he didn't win, and he went on to give a long and kind of, I thought, pretty thoughtful answer about how he would go back to teaching law at UPenn, and he would try to instill the values of the nation as he understands them in his students, and so on. And at the end of the NBC town hall, Savannah lobbed kind of a rare softball at Donald Trump and said, President Trump, what do you say to voters who might not have supported you, but that you essentially do better next time if you're given 4 more years? And Trump's response was, I think I've done a great job. And that kind of tells you a lot about the two men and how they differ. And I think, it was stark contrast.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.